What's up, humans, and welcome to a new Psicoactivo. Happy Wednesday. Second video of the day. I received a lot of great reactions from my two videos about this old gods story, the old gods that are allegedly making a comeback. I keep going back to the Tom DeLonge quotes that he made before 2017.
Around the time of the ancient Greek civilization, these gods came in and they passed down a huge amount of knowledge. That's when we got the alphabet, and that's when we really got into all the mathematics and everything that we know that comes with the ancient Greek civilization. I put down a question where I said, it looks to me that these gods came down here and they tampered with the Sumerian civilization, and then they started fighting amongst themselves, and then mankind started to factionalize. Well, something happened with those gods fighting other gods, that we have all those ancient myths of Olympus and the Titans and all of that stuff. After that, it seems to me that the gods stuck around and they started playing up the different religions between mankind. So we can now be so entertained fighting each other that this intelligence can roam around the planet to do whatever else it is it's trying to do, whether it's trying to tamper with the DNA of mankind, or it's trying to figure out how to harness a human being's soul. Whatever it might be after, I'm not totally sure. Everything in those early advisory group communications were fine, but when I touched on the idea of hybrids in the human soul is when all the communication stopped on that thread. So I have to look at that as something that I shouldn't have been going into at the time.
I can tell you where it was that somebody gave him a slap on the wrist and then he stopped just talking in public because he was going way too crazy sometimes. It was during the Joe Rogan interview. And that's because he decided to even show videos and he was like really open about everything he was saying. Joe Rogan was not believing anything at all. In fact, I think Joe owes Tom DeLonge an apology because when that happened, that was just like 2 months before the 2017 New York Times article released. And a lot of the stuff that he was talking about there and prior to that became true. And so I guess people like Joe, for example, who didn't take him seriously, owe Tom DeLonge an apology, at least. But uh, that's not to say that I believe everything Tom DeLonge is saying. I don't really know where he gets that information. And I don't really know whether everything that's happening right now is designed for it to happen and planned and strategized, or if it's really just happening because it's happening, especially when you get stories like the ones about the old gods, because that is something that even I, since I was younger, I was very fascinated by it. But for me, that is still just mythology. What does make me raise my eyebrows, and it would anybody, is that, yeah, there is people within the intelligence community and other places, but mainly within the intelligence community, who seem to believe or think that this is true about the old gods. And some of them even say they're being channeled by some of these old gods. As I told you with Steve, he claims that an entity named Malachi, who is biblical, I think it was a prophet, it was channeling him. And then he spoke about Aphrodite coming back in the body of a congresswoman. That is wild. I mean, it's for me, and I'm being completely honest here. Forgive me if I do not believe something like that. But I think that because I am respectful when I say that, I believe I'm not using vitriol or ad hominem or disrespect in any way. I think that's why when I speak to people who believe this stuff, they don't see me as somebody who would harm them or anything like that because I'm just curious. I don't believe it, but that doesn't mean that if I see something that convinces me, that doesn't mean that I won't believe forever. So after the video, I spoke to a couple more people and they are thinking that this could be real. But there's other side of the story, which because just think about it. What type of lore similar to this one connects to the story of Steve. I spoke to you guys about Chris Bledsoe. I spoke to you guys about the whole Skywatcher thing and Jordan, who is known as Lightbringer on X, who claims to be part of this psionic program, a secret program. And I've been investigating this because of Dr. Greenberg's disappearance. People think that he no longer exists, he's no longer with us. That's possible, certainly. But I think that the work that he was doing, training children, and the theories that he was doing, the studies, the scientific studies that he was performing on Mexican shamans, he did it at least in 4 or 5 of them. I think that is of major interest to whoever is keeping these secrets, because they're not just exploring whether non-human intelligence is real or not. They're also exploring the confines of our own capabilities, humans, and our real history of how we came about. And there's a lot of stuff that interconnects here. Ancient civilizations, ancient artifacts, the pyramids, and the mainstream academia, mainstream science, mainstream archaeology. They are all like just established in what they believe is real. And that is what the majority of people think. But some of those things may not be. Some of those things, some of those realities, and may have been hidden for a long time. And this also includes our potential as humans. So I do think that if this is happening like in the dark, there is a certain fear from some experiences that have reached out to me, because they don't trust on whatever this storyline is about the old gods, and they don't trust. I've been listening to them, not necessarily agreeing with them, but I think it's interesting that there are like two different sides of this story, because some of these experiencers are actually not that happy with whatever Skywatcher is trying to do. Because think about it. If this is real and people can actually call on UFOs or these objects, if people find out that this is actually real and they start doing it, wouldn't that like single people out? So I guess that concern is warranted, especially with all the dark history that there is about these alleged secret programs. And if that is the case, you saw on yesterday's interview with Harold Malmgren, they've been keeping an eye on him since he was like in his late teens or maybe 20 years old. And that is happening all the time. Why do they keep tabs on people who have seem to have capabilities for a lot of things? You could say that Harold Malmgren had a special capability to turn down arguably one of the biggest warmongers in history, General Curtis LeMay. And he managed to stand up to him and prevent something catastrophic. You need a special kind of capability in order to be able to do that. And I'm guessing that the people who are afraid of this and don't want to be bothered, even though they're experiencers, that's what they're worried about, that they want to flesh people out, you know, for whatever reason. I don't know. There's a lot of different theories. Some get really dark, others not so much. But I'm not going to entertain the different theories there are for this, because I haven't looked into it that deeply. And whenever I hear somebody who approaches me with some information about this, I take it with a grain of salt, because it's something really secret and really dark. So I need to be really careful, as you guys probably understand. So just reporting on what I've managed to identify now and the dots that I've managed to connect so far. So, what I thought about, and the reason that I'm doing this video, besides this little rant, is that when I started talking to these people, I realized that there is a lot of people that believe this is happening, not just them, or that believe that it might be possible or real. So when I realized that many of them are from the Intel community, I recalled a clip from a podcast that completely changes my perspective on what was said there. And it is from Professor Diana Pasulka talking to Danny Jones about the hierarchy of beings, they call it. And Tim Taylor, who is known as Tyler on Diana Pasulka's books, he is the one who describes this hierarchy. So I'm gonna play it for you guys, just this part, so you guys see. Maybe you don't see what I saw, but here it is.
Tyler described a hierarchy of beings. How do you make sense of that?
Well, it's really interesting to me. So Tyler's information about the protocols I thought was so good and interesting and helpful that I asked him to guest speak in my classes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, prior to the publication of American Cosmic. So he would guest speak in my classes, and my students loved him, by the way. So he would, it would be standing room only when he was around. And students would come, and pack into my classes. And he would basically talk to them about their own, lives and what they were interested in doing and that type of thing. And during the time period, he was really open about his beliefs. And part of what he used to say was that there was a hierarchy of beings. And he placed God at the top. He was Christian. And then he placed angels below God. And then he placed beings like off-planet beings. He called them off-planet beings.
Okay, those off-planet beings are the ones that first came to mind, and then because that goes back to for example, Patrick Harper's Daimonic Reality, where he talks about beings that are not necessarily in this realm but belong to another one, and they can phase in and out of the realms. And it's just information. Not saying that I believe it, just repeating this for the skeptics out there, because I'm very interested in this, and I'm just exploring it. And the fact that people are actually believe that this is a thing, that is what puzzles me, and that's why I'm digging. So just to clarify.
And then he placed, and this is where it gets really weird to me, factions in the intelligence community, and then normal humans. That was the hierarchy.
Okay.
I think that is that's what jumped out to me when I realized that this group of people are convinced or think that these old gods are coming back. And I was mentioned some of the names, which is funny though, because they come from popular culture mainly, and from oral traditions, and from ancient history. But it's really mixed. It's a mixed bag from different cultures. The names that I heard were Hestia, who I think it's Greek, Shamash, I don't know what that is, Balder, Hermes, and then that Chris Bledsoe talks about this lady. He said that her name is actually Hathor, who's another ancient god. And I've heard other names but those are the ones that came up the most. And that, and obviously Malachi, who I already talked to you guys about with Steve. I want to ask, do you guys think that maybe Tim Taylor does have this type of knowledge as well, and he believes what these people believe too? We all want to talk to him in any shape or form, because he's one of the most enigmatic figures in recent history in this topic. And I don't know, it's what I just don't like is that people just go to the extreme, right? Just to give you an example, there are people who are extremely religious, and whenever they talk about these topics or UFOs or whatever, the example that I want to give you is that I was with my dentist, and when I was talking to him, he didn't know that I had the channel, and he asked me, and I told him, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I know what UFOs are." And I was like, "Really? What are they?" He's like, "They're demons." So that is the general consensus that a lot of people seem to have. And then there's also this part that they believe they are ancient gods. I heard Tim Alberino once saying that demons are just like they exist, but they're not. They have nothing to do with UFOs. So I respect everybody who believes whatever they want to believe, but you can go to that extreme or you can go to the other extreme and be a complete atheist and completely disrespect and shit all over people's beliefs, and because you think that UFOs are have nothing to do with that. And I've even seen takes that people say that ufology has been taken over by religious extremists. I wouldn't go that far either. Why go to the extreme? Yes, there are people like the Collins elite that are seem to be fundamentalist on their beliefs, and they seem to have power to make decisions. So somebody who has that belief obviously enacts their power based on their belief, and they make decisions based on their belief. And then there's also the completely materialistic atheist way of seeing things that is just strictly science, and whatever science cannot explain does not exist. We can't go to both extremes, you know? And it's interesting to investigate that, but I do have to wonder what these beings are really. Because you gotta remember, there's a lot of literature talking about the phenomenon being a trickster. What if all of these people are just being tricked by some entity, you know? So we got to keep all the options open, I believe. But yeah, I've been listening to some overarching story. These people seem to have like a plan or something like that. I'm not entirely sure how it's gonna work or what's gonna happen, but if they are enacting that plan, we should be hearing from them sometime, and it should be at least interesting to see what happens, because it's a hard one to swallow, you know. But yeah, I am documented on a lot of this lore, so it doesn't hurt to just see what happens. I'm definitely not gonna discount what anybody says because they have the reason to believe what they believe, or their experiences were very crystal clear. I would just like to ask even them to try and exercise discernment without applying their worldview to whatever they're experiencing. Maybe that will give them a different result. I don't know. Just just a suggestion. But this is definitely happening. People in high positions of power, intelligence community, people even known in the UFO community seem to believe that this is a thing. I just want to know why. What is making you guys believe that? Whatever that is, I just keep going back to we don't know what's really going on. So we need to be careful in the way we explore this thing. But that's just me. Let me know if you think the same, though, because I've been meaning to talk to you guys a little bit about this for a while. And what do you think about Diana Pasulka's explanation of Tim Taylor's hierarchy of beings? That's interesting, right? Do you think that these people that believe the old gods are coming and they're being channeled uh, could be some of those intel groups that apparently are considered above normal humans like us, which is kind of weird. What do you think about that? Let me know in the comments. And what do you think about this overall idea? I know a lot of you probably believe this is real too, and a lot of you don't. But please just don't go to the extreme, as I humbly request. Let's try to hear everyone out, see what they have to say, and not just go instantly to the jugular, you know? In the comment section, of course. Proverbial jugular. Let me know what you think. It's an interesting one. If you like the content you see, I'm going to ask you to please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you can get notified when a new video drops. If you want to support the channel in any other way, you can become a member. You can support us on KGRA, or you can pick a link. Either way you go, thank you for your support. And that's it for me today on this video, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Remember, stay curious, stay inquisitive. Bye.